Everything you need is found in the train yard. So once dropping off the passengers, use the turntable found at the depot to turn the engine around and then take the train cars to be fixed. But if the train cars are too far gone, then give them a Viking funeral. Greetings and welcome back to Checkpoint Gaming, Ticket to Ride. In this episode, we'll be going over the mechanics of the game. But before delving into today's episode, let's talk about today's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Ghost and Campfire Stories of Huntington Lake, a collection of original fiction set in and around the area of Huntington Lake, California. These range from lake monsters that possess a threat to human beings to roaming spirits of dead airmen. Accompanying these stories are a few illustrations that are peppered throughout the collection. This collection of stories can be bought on Amazon in paperback form or for your Kindle. A link will be provided in this episode's description for those interested in obtaining a copy for themselves. So big thank you to Ghost and Campfire Stories of Huntington Lake for sponsoring this episode, and with that taken care of, let's get into today's episode. The game's objective is to score the most amount of points. The scoring of points is done through the claiming of a route between two adjacent locations found on a map, successfully completing a continuous path of routes found between two locations found on a map that are listed on the player's destination ticket cards, completing the most destination tickets, and the completing of the longest continuous path of routes when applicable. With the components of the game, they consist of the following elements. First are the board maps. Each variant of the game comes with its own rule booklet, except for Switzerland, which comes with a rule sheet. Found on each board map is a series of destinations with rectangular colored routes found running between them. The ship routes for Great Lakes and the world maps, these routes are oval in shape. But regardless of the route type, each one can only possess one game piece. Although the vast majority of destinations consist of cities, some of them consist of countries. This will in turn allow the destination ticket cards to show the destinations that are areas within a city, city to city, city to country, or country to country. And with the country destinations, they are not to any particular city within that given country, but to the country as a whole. Second, we have the game pieces. With the game pieces, they consist of a series of colored train pieces, although there are some exceptions. With the Great Lakes and the world, there are also a series of colored ship pieces. With the major variants, they are found within the city map, with Amsterdam using carts, London using buses, New York using taxis, and San Francisco using cable cars. With the Europe map, each train station that is kept in reserve at the end of the game will also score points. With the Germany map, collecting the majority of passenger meeples of each color will grant points. With the Markland map, moving passengers will also grant points. It's also worth noting that with the Markland map, it is basically a replica of the Germany map. Points are also lost or deducted from the player's final score if the player fails to complete the route that is listed on the destination ticket cards that they possess. When it comes to determining who goes first, there are a few options available listed in the rules. You can go with the player who has the most experience traveling, visited the most countries in Europe in their lifetime, is the most experienced traveler, is the oldest player, or the youngest player. So things such as travel can be the benchmark for who goes first as well as the age of the players. But who goes first can also be determined at random or to have the player with the most experience playing the game go first. But we'll leave it up to the players on how to go about determining this. Once the first player has been determined, proceed clockwise around the table, each player taking one turn at a time until the game ends. On the player's turn, they will perform one and only one of the following three actions. Draw from the train car cards, claim a route, or draw destination tickets. If playing with the Europe, Great Lakes, Italy, Markland, or world maps, there is the fourth action that is available. With Europe, it is the playing of a train station. With Italy, it is drawing of a single ferry card. And if a player already has two ferry cards found in their hand, they are not allowed to draw a third. With Markland, it is the moving of passengers. With Great Lakes and World, players can build harbors and exchange pieces. With drawn train car cards, the player may draw two of them. This includes taking any of the face-up cards found next to the deck, or to draw blind from the top of the deck. Players may even draw one face-up and one from the deck. If drawing a face-up card, immediately flip a replacement card face-up from the deck. After flipping the replacement card, the player can draw the second card, which can be from either the face-up cards or from the top of the deck. When a player draws a train car card, they may draw two cards per turn. This may be done from either the 5 face-up cards found next to the map or from the top of the deck. If drawn from the face-up cards, the player will have to immediately replace it with the new card at the top of the draw deck. With the Great Lakes and World maps, there is a ship deck as well as a train deck. Each of these cards also possess a color which relates to the various routes found upon the map. Also during the Great Lakes or World game, it is possible for all 6 of the face-up cards to be train cards, ship cards, or a mixture of the two. When the draw deck is exhausted, the discard pile will need to be reshuffled in order to create a new draw deck. This reshuffling should be done thoroughly, given the fact that all of the discarded cards are found in sets. In the unlikely event that there is no cards left in the deck and there are none in the discard pile, then the player will be unable to draw train car cards. Instead, the player will only claim a route or draw destination ticket cards. It is at this point that it should be noted that with the train car cards, ship cards, and destination tickets, a player can have any number of them within their hand at any given time. When playing with Africa, anytime a player is allowed to draw a train car card, they can choose to draw a train card instead. This allows the player to draw 2 train car cards, 2 train cards, or 1 train car card and 1 train card. Train cards that are placed face up are to be immediately replaced with a new one that is drawn for the deck, just like the train car cards. When placing train cards face up, they should be within easy reach of all of the players. And when setting up the train cards at the start of the game, 2 of them are to be placed face up, with the remaining cards that constitute the deck being placed next to them face down. Players are also given 1 random train card at the beginning of the game. Players can also choose to draw train cards blindly from the top of the deck. But unlike train cards are to be placed face up in front of the player once they have been drawn. From there, they are to be sorted by train type and slightly offset from each other in order to make it clear to the other players how many train cards of each type that the player possesses. With the train cards, there are 25 of them in total, divided in 3 different train types with 15 identical cards found in each set. Each train type is also associated with 3 different route colors. With the desert and savanna cards, they are connected with the yellow, orange, and red routes. With the jungle and forest cards, they are connected with the purple, blue, and green routes. With the mountain and cliff cards, they are connected with the white, gray, and black routes. With Team Asia, initial train card cards are kept private to each player and not shared, even with the player's teammate. With the common train card cards holder of the team is to remain empty at the start of the game. During the course of the game, a player is allowed to use their turn to place up to 2 destination tickets from their hand onto the common tickets card holder and to share that information with their teammate. If doing this, said player cannot do anything else in that turn. During the course of the game with Team Asia, when a player chooses to draw train card cards, they will have to place 1 card into their hand and the other card into the team's card holder. When a player draws the first card, they must immediately decide if they will be adding it to their hand or to share it with their teammate by placing it into the common card holder. The second card to be drawn will have to go to the other location, either their hand or the team card holder. In regards to the locomotive, bus, taxi, or San Francisco ferry card, if it consists of one of the 5 face-up cards, the player is only allowed to draw 1 card instead of 2. If after drawing a non-locomotive card from the face-up field and the replacement card is a locomotive, or there is another locomotive available in the face-up area, then the player cannot take it as their second card. But if the player is lucky enough to draw a locomotive from the top of their deck in a blind draw, it still counts as a single card, and that player may still draw a total of 2 cards that turn. And if at any time there are 3 locomotives, buses, taxis, or San Francisco ferries among the 5 face-up cards, then all 5 cards are immediately discarded, and 5 new cards are drawn or turned face-up to replace them. In regards to the Great Lakes and World Map, although these possess a total of 6 face-up cards instead of 5, if at any time 3 of the 6 face-up travel cards are wild cards, then all 6 of the cards will be immediately discarded to their respective discard piles, and 6 new cards are to be turned face-up to replace them. With these replacement cards, they have to consist of 3 from each deck. With locomotive cards, they can be played along with any set of cards when claiming a route. They are also visible when it comes to claiming of ferry routes. With the expansion and variants, the aforementioned rules with the locomotives are still in play unless otherwise stated. With the Africa map, locomotives may be used as wild terrain cards instead of wild train cards. Each locomotive played in this manner is worth 1 train card of the player's choice. They are also discarded and placed into the train discard pile. And with the Great Lakes and World maps, locomotives can be used for harbors. With some variants of the game, there are no restrictions on the number of locomotive cards a player can draw on their turn. With these variants, they consist of the Nordic countries and Switzerland. With the Nordic countries, they can be part of a set when claiming a tunnel or ferry route. Locomotive cards can also be used to complete or always replace the colored card requirements to claim a tunnel or ferry route, but they can never be used with the claiming of a regular route. With Switzerland, locomotive cards can be selected just like a standard train car card, with allowing a player to pick up 2 of them during their turn. When used, locomotives can only be played on tunnel routes, and though they can be used to complement or otherwise replace the colored card requirement to claim a tunnel route, locomotives can never be used to help claim a regular non-tunnel route. With Team Asia, if a player chooses to draw a single face-up locomotive, the said player will have to place it in their team's common card holder. With the United Kingdom, at the start of the game, each player will receive a locomotive in addition to their 4 initial train cards. And any 4 cards can also be used as a locomotive stand-in. And when there are 3 or more locomotives found among the available face-up cards, they are not to be discarded. With France, train car cards are exactly the same as any other map, but when the player draws a card, they'll have to build a single route on the train bed. After drawing, said player will have to choose any of the available track pieces and then place it onto any track bed route of the same length as shown on the map. This piece will then determine the color of the newly built route. At this point, it is worth noting that there are a number of places found on the map where 2 or more routes are able to cross. So when one crossing route is built, then 1 or more of the other routes will become unavailable. This is because players can never have track pieces laying on top of or underneath another track piece or to go through an already existing route. When playing with Markland, it has passenger cards that can be drawn just like train car cards. When moving a passenger, the player can play any number of passenger cards and use 1 route that belongs to an opponent for each passenger card that they played. And if at any time there are 3 passenger cards among the 5 face-up cards, then all 5 cards are immediately discarded and 5 new cards are turned face-up to replace them. In a 2 to 3 player game, only one track of a double or triple routes are allowed to be built. On a 4 to 6 player game, when building a track piece from a double or triple route, said player can only build one track of the route at any time. Because of this, these tracks can never be built all at once. This results in all of the other routes being built separately. With that said, there are some exceptions to this which are addressed later. In claiming a route upon any of the maps, the player will immediately score points they receive by moving their scoring marker on the scoring track. This number is indicated on the route scoring table. With the tourist tokens, they are scored at the end of the game. Although the route scoring table will vary based upon the map being played, the point value remains the same, and the score is based upon the length of the route that is claimed. With the route length of 1, it is equal to 1 point. With the route length of 2, it is equal to 2 points. With the route length of 3, it is equal to 4 points. With the route length of 4, it is equal to 7 points. With the route length of 5, it is equal to 10 points. With the route length of 6, it is equal to 15 points. With the route length of 7, it is equal to 18 points. With the route length of 8, it is equal to 21 points. And with the route length of 9, it is equal to 27 points. With claiming a route, a player can claim a route found on the board playing a set of train car or ship cards that match the color and length of said route. This requires the number of cards that matches the route's length. This also indicates the transportation type. Follow this by placing one of their colored trains, ships, carts, buses, taxis, or cable cars onto each space that makes up said route. If playing with Germany, the player will then collect a passenger meeple from both spots running the route that they just claimed. If playing Markland, then the player can place one of the passengers in either city of this particular route after claiming it, but only one passenger is allowed in any given city. With a route, it is a set of continuous colored pieces found between two adjacent destinations. In some instances, these routes are gray in color. When it comes to gray routes, it can be claimed using a set of colors of any given single color. The exception to this has to do with the Romanski-Leska route found on the Nordic countries map. With this route, a player can use any 4 cards, include locomotives, as substitutes for a card of that color. With certain maps, such as Africa, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom, some of these destinations include neighboring countries. These differ from some maps like Pennsylvania and the United States due to the fact that instead of listing a city in that given country, they are just listed as a given country. In order to claim a route, a player will have to play a set of train cards or ship cards that match the color and are equal to the number of spaces found in that route. With many routes, they require a specific set of type in order to claim it. A route will also have to be claimed in its entirety during a single turn. When it comes to locomotives, they can always stand in for any given color. The player is also limited to claiming a maximum of 1 route on their turn, and if a player doesn't have enough pieces to claim a given route, then said player cannot claim that route. With San Francisco, if there is at least 1 tourist token found at one of the locations that has just been linked, then the player will take one of those tokens unless they already have a token that features that symbol. If that's the case, then said player will not take that token. If that's the case, then said player will not take it. And if there are tourist tokens found at both linked locations, the player can choose which tourist token they will take, so the same restrictions still apply. Regarding all claimed tourist tokens, they are to be kept in front of the player and clearly visible to their opponents. With many of the ship cards, they are double ships, so when claiming a route with these cards, the player can place up to 2 ships per double route. So when a route consists of 2 spaces, a single double ship card can be played to claim it instead of using 2 single ship cards. When it comes to that of claiming a route upon any of the published maps, the player will have to place one of the plastic pieces onto each of the spaces found in the route. From there, discard all of the cards found in the set that is used to claim the given route into the discard pile. When it comes to claiming a route, it can only be done with an open route. The player is also not required to connect any of their previously played routes. The exception to this is with the Old West map, where the first route a player claimed has to be from the starting city. With every subsequent route claimed, it has to be connected to their home city or a city they have already connected to. They are never allowed to claim a route that's not connected to their network. If claiming a route upon the Amsterdam map that possesses a card icon, the player will draw 1 merchandise bonus card from the corresponding deck, which is to be placed face up in front of the player, allowing all other players to see how many their opponents possess. And the player can only collect 1 merchandise bonus card per round, regardless of how long the route is and how many card icons it possesses. With the world map, there are some routes that are marked with a special hair symbol. With this symbol, it indicates that this route will cover very difficult terrain. In order to claim one of their pair spaces, the player will need to play 2 train cards of the same color instead of 1. And any colored train cards are allowed to be used, and they do not have to be the same color for all the other spaces found in the route. Wild cards are also allowed to be used as part of this pair. After claiming a route, the player will place one of their city markers in either of the cities found on the route by the playing of a pair of cards of the same color, with locomotives being allowed to be used to replace one or both of them. With each city, it can only have 1 city marker on it, preventing 2 more players from laying claim over the same city. The player can also control a maximum of 3 cities on the board. This is due to the fact that each player will only have 3 city markers available to them to use. And once the city marker has been placed, it cannot be moved. As usual, the claiming of route will give the player who claimed it points unless at least one of the connected cities is controlled by an opposing player. In this case, the owner of the city marker will score the points instead of the player who claimed the route. And if a player claims a route that's connected to one of their city markers, they will score the route as normal. If both cities are controlled, then both controlling players will score points off that claimed route. If the same person controls both cities, then said player will score points twice. With the Africa map, in addition to playing the train car cards, the player can simultaneously play some of the train cards found in front of them in order to double the point value of the route being claimed. When playing train car or cards, they will have to match the color of the route being claimed, and the player will have to have in front of them at least as many cards of that train type as any other player. But the number of train card or card now being played to double the route's value will depend on the length of the route being claimed. If the route possesses 1, 2, or 3 spaces, then the player will have to play one train card with matching color. If the route possesses 4, 5, or 6 spaces, then the player will have to play 2 train cards of a matching color. The number of plastic trains placed onto the route being claimed, they remain the same as if its points value isn't doubled. From there, the train cards are discarded after being played, with the discarded cards being reshuffled into a new train deck when the deck runs out of cards. With the train cards found in front of the players at the end of the game, they have no point value. When it comes to Madagascar, it is a location that is represented by 2 destinations found on the map. With tickets that take a player to Madagascar, it can be completed by reaching either of these 2 destinations, even if the other location hasn't been reached. With the multiple routes that lead to all other countries, they are dead ends and they cannot be used to connect to these separate routes. In other words, separate routes that lead into the same country are not connected to each other. With the Team Asia map, a player may use any combination of train car cards from their hand and or those found for team's card holder. With the Germany map, once a player has claimed a route, then they will take one passenger meeple for each of the 2 destinations that were just connected. If multiple meeples are found in a destination, then said player can choose which one they wish to take. But if no passengers are present, then the player will not get one from that given destination. When collecting passengers, players will add them to a growing pool of figures as visible to everyone found at the table. With the Japan map, it introduces a new route known as the bullet train route. During the course of play, players will work together towards the development of a great bullet train network that runs across the country. Once a bullet train route has been claimed, it can be used by any player to help complete their given destination tickets. With that said, there will still be competition due to the fact that at the end of the game, the player who contributed the most to this bullet train project will receive a larger reward for it. This makes sense, and those who risk the most reap the most benefits when it comes time to collect upon one's interests. With the claiming of bullet train route, the same rules are in play as when claiming a regular route. Once done, instead of scoring points for claiming a route, the player will advance the progression marker found in the bullet train track equal to the number of cards that were displayed, followed by placing a single white bullet train onto the space that shows a bullet train icon on that route instead of one of their own train cars. If at any time the players run out of bullet train miniatures, then all unclaimed bullet train routes will become standard gray routes. Players will then claim them with their own standard train car card, accompanied by placing one of their regular train cars onto each space of the route. So follow the rules from the base game with no more progression made upon the bullet train track. With the Hamori-Hakodate route, there are 2 routes found between Hamori and Hakodate. However, these routes don't have the same number of spaces, meaning that they do not count as a double route and that those routes will follow standard rules. For the completion of the Osaka-Shibuya destination ticket, the player will have to connect Osaka to Tokyo via the continuous chain of routes with the player's train and or claimed bullet train routes on the main board, followed by completing the Tokyo to Shibuya found on the zoomed-in map. With the Kyushu Island and Tokyo subway systems, these 2 regions appear on the board as zoomed-in parts of the map. With routes used in these areas, they are claimed in the usual way. In order to complete destination tickets into and out of these regions, consider that a route which will lead to Tokyo or Kura on the main board is connected to all routes that are connected to the same city on the zoomed-in parts of the map. In effect, both Tokyo locations, both on the main map and on the zoomed-in section, are the same location, and both Koya locations are in the same location. With the Italy map, all gray routes are connected to the ferry route. So these routes, spaces with a wave symbol will require the use of either locomotive cards or ferry cards. But spaces that are without wave symbols will follow the same rules as the usual gray route. One ferry card can be used for up to 2 spaces with a wave symbol, whereas locomotive cards only worth that of 1 space each. Ferry cards also cannot be used on any regular route or on any ferry route spaces that are without a wave symbol. With some destinations found upon the different maps, they are connected by double or triple routes. With these routes, their spaces are parallel and equal to a number between destinations. When it comes to claiming these routes, one player is not allowed to claim both or all the routes found between 2 destinations during the course of a single game. But be careful when it comes to that of partially parallel routes. This is because these partially parallel routes connect to different locations. With most maps, they are limited to 4 to 5 player games, with the occasional exception as seen with the Nordic countries map, where they are limited to 3 player games, and San Francisco, where they are limited to 3 to 4 player games. When it comes to that of 2 or 3 players in a given game, only one of the double or triple routes can be used. When claiming either of these 2 routes between destinations, a player can claim either one of them, but when doing so, the other route is then considered closed to all the other players for the remainder of the game. This 2 to 3 player limitation on the double or triple routes is in play for all maps unless otherwise stated. With the Great Lakes map, several destinations have both a train route and a ship route between them. In situations like this, these routes are not considered to be double routes. The Nordic countries map, this limitation is restricted to only 2-player games. With the double routes found on the Legendary Asia map, some of them feature a gray route next to a colored route. When claiming the gray route, the player may use any card set they choose to use of one color and claim the route as usual, even if the color the player is using matches the color of the parallel route. With the Team Asia map, once a double route has been claimed, the other route will become unavailable for the other players to claim. The only exception to this has to do with the Hong Kong Canton double route that remains open even when it is a 4-player game. With the Germany and Team Asia map, they also contain some triple routes. With the 4-player games in Team Asia, only 2 of these 3 routes are allowed to be claimed, though both players found on the same team can decide to claim each one. This will effectively block it off from the other team. With the Netherlands map, most routes are double routes and all of them are in play regardless of the number of people playing. All routes have a cost, with players having to pay Bridge Toll tokens. When the first of the double routes is claimed, the corresponding value of Bridge Toll tokens will have to be paid directly into the bank. However, when claiming the second route, the value is paid to the player who claimed the first route. When a player doesn't have enough Bridge Toll tokens to pay the cost of a route, the said player will have to take out a single loan card from the bank when claiming that given route. Once taking a loan card, it must be placed face up in front of the player for the rest of the game. The player will pay no tokens even if said player can make a partial payment and they can never reimburse this loan. If the route being claimed is the second route of a double route, then the owner of the first route will receive its value in toll tokens directly from the bank instead of from the player who is forced to take the loan. Netherlands also comes with Bridge Toll tokens. Since the country is full of rivers and canals, bridges exist and the player will need to pay a toll in order to pass them. Each player will start the game with an equal set of 30 Bridge Toll tokens that consist of 10 tokens valued at 1, 6 tokens that are valued at 2, and 2 tokens that are valued at 4. With any unused Bridge Toll tokens, they are placed in the bank next to the board. Players are allowed to get change from the bank and from other players when needed at any point during the game. Players are also to keep the value of their Bridge Toll tokens secret from the other players until the end of the game. To help offset the advantage of going first, the player's scored markers are staggered as indicated with a scoring track at the start of the game. With the use of fairies, they are used in Europe, India, Italy, Legendary Asia, Nordic countries, Old West, Pennsylvania, and the United Kingdom. With Italy, it uses fairy card and was addressed earlier. With ferry routes, there are special routes printed in gray and link 2 adjacent destinations that are found across a body of water, and they can be easily identified by the presence of the locomotive or ferry icon found on at least one of the faces that makes up the given route. In order to claim a ferry route, the player will have to play a locomotive or ferry card for each locomotive or ferry symbol found on the route with the usual set of cards of the proper color for the remaining spaces of the given ferry route. It is worth noting that the normal locomotive substitution is still in play when it comes to the non-locomotive spaces of a ferry route. When it comes to that of the Nordic countries map, any 3 card can be used as a substitution, a single locomotive card. When it comes to that of the Pennsylvania map, there are only 2 ferry routes found on it, and each leads to Ontario. With these 2 routes, they are not connected to each other. With the use of tunnels, they are used in Europe, Nordic countries, Switzerland, and Team Asia. With tunnels, there are special routes that are identified by a special tunnel mark and outlines that are found surrounding each of these given spaces that make up the route. What makes the tunnel special is that the player is never quite sure how long the route they are trying to claim is going to be. When trying to claim a tunnel route, the player will need to first lay down the color and number of train car cards that are required by the route they are trying to claim. Once completing that, they are to flip the top 3 cards for the train card deck face up. When it comes to that of Team Asia, the only difference when it comes to that of tunnel routes is that with the Himalayas, the number of train cards that are to be drawn from the top of the train card deck is higher, varying from 4 to 6. This number is indicated by the number found on the particular tunnel route. For each card that is revealed that is the same color and the color of the train card cards that were played to claim the tunnel, or if a locomotive is flipped, then the player trying to claim the tunnel route will have to play an additional card from their hand that is the same color for the locomotive in order to successfully claim the tunnel. With Team Asia, the cards found in the shared card holder are allowed to be used. If the player is able to play these additional cards, or none of the flipped cards are the same color or locomotive, then the player has successfully claimed the tunnel route. But if the player does not have enough additional train car cards that can be used to match the flipped cards, or if the player doesn't wish to play them, then said player will take all of the cards back into their hand. But either way, by claiming it or not, the player's turn will come to an end. At the end of the turn, the train car cards that were flipped and revealed in the train card deck for the tunnel gets discarded. And since locomotives are multicolored wild cards, any locomotive card that is drawn from the top of the train card deck during the tunnel attempt will automatically match the color of the train card cards that the player played for that route, thus forcing the player to play an additional card to try and claim the tunnel. This can be another card of the same color for a locomotive. When the player is exclusively playing locomotive cards to try and claim a tunnel route, only additional locomotives drawn from the deck will be considered to be a match. So this means that even though locomotives are multicolored, the player will not have to worry about any colored card being flipped for the train card deck triggering a match, thus preventing the player from worrying about having to play any additional cards. But in the event where there are not enough available train card cards to draw from the deck itself and its accompanying discard pile to reveal 3 cards, or none at all, and determine the effect of the tunnel and the player due to the player's hoarding train card cards, which is hopefully a rare event, then only those cards that are available to be revealed, if there are any, are revealed. This opens up the possibility that a tunnel can be claimed without the risk of having to pay any additional cards. A tunnel can also be claimed with no tunnel cards being flipped. And in the unlikely event that all of the flipped cards are locomotives, the player will have to pay additional cards equal to those flipped locomotives. If the player is only playing locomotives to claim a route, then said player will have to pay all locomotives to match the flipped tunnel cards. With Legendary Asia, it has mountain routes that causes wear and tear upon the trains that travel through them. With the mountain routes, they are identified by an X symbol that is found on at least one of the bases that makes up the route. In order to claim a mountain route, the player will have to play the usual set of cards of the proper color and length of the route, followed by placing the number of train cards onto said route, scoring the points indicated by the route scoring table as normal. From there, the player will have to discard 1 train card for every X found along the route. With these train cards, they are taken from the player's lie and are placed on the mountain crossing area as illustrated on the map. For each train card that is discarded in this way, it will immediately add 2 points to the player's score. If the player does not have enough train cards left to place on the map and to discard for each X found along the route, then said player cannot claim the mountain route. Some of the double routes will feature a colored mountain route and a partial regular gray route. For this gray route, it does not pass through the mountains, thus not requiring a train card to be discarded, whereas the other mountain route will still require the player to do so. With the France map, it has a map feature that is currently exclusive to that of France, and that is the track bed. On this map, most of the routes are presented in the form of track beds and thus cannot be claimed at the beginning of the game. Instead, the routes will have to be built by the players as the game progresses. So since the France map uses track beds, apart from the 1 space and gray routes, both of which have already been built, which allows them to be claimed immediately, a player will only be able to claim a route if they built that route first. Once a route has been claimed, then any track piece that was found on the track is then put back into the supply where it can be chosen again. When drawing destination tickets, the player will draw 3 of them from the top of the destination ticket deck for each map unless otherwise stated. The player will have to keep at least 1, but they can choose to keep some or all of them if they wish. And cards that are returned are placed at the bottom of the deck with the following exceptions. With the Netherlands map, the returned cards are placed face up next to the draw pile. If the destination ticket deck runs out of cards, then shuffle the previously discarded tickets to form a new deck and draw from there. For the Nordic countries and Switzerland map, the return cards are immediately removed from the game and placed into the box instead of returning them to the bottom of the deck. Due to this fact, it is possible for a game to entirely run out of destination ticket cards. With the Africa, France, Germany, Great Lakes, Italy, Markland, Netherlands, Old West, Pennsylvania, Team Asia, and World maps, the player is to draw 4 destination tickets instead of 3, while still keeping at least 1. With Germany and Markland, they can draw new destination tickets from either of the 2 destination ticket decks in any combination, but the player will first announce the combination of tickets that they will be drawing. When drawing contract or destination tickets for Amsterdam, London, New York City, or San Francisco, the player will draw 2 of them from the top of the contract or destination ticket deck for each map. The player will have to keep at least 1, but they can choose to keep both of them if they wish. When it comes to returning any of the cards, they are to be placed at the bottom of the corresponding deck. With Team Asia, the player will then place one of these newly acquired tickets into the team's common destination ticket card holder while keeping the other ticket secret for their teammate. If there are less than the mandatory number of destination ticket cards that are available, then the player will have to draw whatever cards are available, keeping at least 1. The destination tickets that the player possesses, they are kept secret from the other players until the end of the game and the final score is tallied. And any destination ticket cards that are not immediately discarded when drawing a new destination ticket cards, they must be kept until the end of the game, thus preventing them from being discarded during a later ticket draw. It is also possible for a player to have any number of destination ticket cards during the course of the game. With each destination and control ticket, they include the name of 2 destinations found upon the map, typically that of a city, and possesses a point value to it. These destinations represent the travel goals of the players, and they will result in the awarding or removing of points. If the player successfully completes the route listed on the destination ticket, thus connecting the 2 destination points, they will add the amount of points that is listed on the destination ticket in the point value area to their final point score at the end of the game. But if the player is unsuccessful in completing a destination ticket, then points are to be deducted by the amount indicated by the point value listed upon the card from their final point score at the end of the game. When it comes to the maps that have neighboring countries that are listed on them instead of cities, as seen with France, Germany, Italy, Markland, and Switzerland, each of these routes will lead to a dead end and will be separate from all the others. So different routes that lead to the same country are never considered to be connected. With Japan, to complete destination tickets, players are allowed to use any mix of routes with their own train card pieces or claim with the bullet train route, regardless if they claim the bullet train route themselves or not. With Netherland, unless playing a 2-player game using the neutral player variant, ignore the cities that are listed at the bottom of some of the destination tickets. With the Europe map, in order to build a train station, the player will have to select a city that does not already have a train station found on it. With train stations, they allow its owner to use one and only one of the routes that belong to another player that leads into or out of that given city to help that player connect the cities that are found on their destination tickets. When building stations, they can be done on any unoccupied city, even if it currently has claimed routes that enter into it. 2 players are never allowed to build a station within the same city. Each player can build a maximum of 1 station per turn and up to a maximum of 3 stations throughout the course of the game. To build the first station, a player will play and discard 1 train car card from the hand. From there, they will place one of their colored train stations onto the chosen city. To build the second station, the player will have to play and discard a set of 2 cards of any one color. Finally, to build the third station, the player will have to play and discard a set of 3 cards of any one color. As usual, the player can replace any number of these cards with locomotives. If a player uses the same station to help connect cities on several different tickets, then said player will have to use the same route into the city with the station for all those tickets. The owner of the train station does not need to declare which route they will be using until the end of the game. Players are also never required to build any of their stations. For each station that a player doesn't use, 4 points are to be added to the final score at the end of the game. With Markland, the 4th action available is to move any one of their passengers as already found upon the board. With this passenger, it must move from the city that it is currently occupying along any or all of the player's continuous routes, picking up 1 merchandise token from each city it moves through, taking the highest remaining token found at that location. The passenger can also only use the same route once per turn, thus preventing it from backtracking over the same route. The player will also not pick up the merchandise token found in the city in which the passenger starts. Passengers can also move into or through cities that possess other passengers. However, passengers cannot be placed or go through a country destination. And once at the end of the turn, the passenger that moved is to be removed from the game. So each player has a maximum of 3 turns in which the passenger can move during the game. The points scored are recorded immediately, but the player will keep the merchandise tokens in the case that they need to record their score later. With the exchanging of pieces, is only allowed for the Great Lakes and World Map, and it grants the player the ability to exchange some of the pieces found in their supply with those that they return to the box. With the exchanging of pieces, it is permitted upon the player's turn and can exchange any number of pieces found in their supply for the colored pieces found in the box. This exchange is also at the rate of 1 to 1. The player will add the new pieces to their supply and return the exchanged pieces back to the box. The player will also lose 1 point for each piece that they exchanged, and players may exchange pieces as many times during the game as they want. However, it can only be done if said player has pieces of the desired type still in the box. With the Great Lakes and World Maps, players are able to build harbors. With the building of a harbor, it is in a city that the player has claimed with a route going into or out of it. With harbors, they can only be built within a port city which are identified with a blue anchor icon. With each port city, they can only support 1 harbor. Players also cannot be harbor within a port city unless they have at least 1 route of either type going into that given city. In order to build a harbor, the player will have to play a total of 4 cards which contains 2 train cards and 2 ship cards. With all 4 of these cards, they'll have to be the same color and possess the harbor icon. Wild cards are also allowed to replace any of these 4 cards. With the ship cards that have these harbor icons, they are the single ship cards. With the Poland map, it is recommended that when drawing country cards, players announce aloud which one they will be taking in order to let the other players see if said player qualifies for it, as well as realize that the country card stack are getting smaller. In order to trigger the end scenario of the game, regardless of the map being used, the stock of colored train cars of 1 player gets down to 2 trains, carts, buses, taxis, or cable cars, or less at the end of their turn. Each player will then get 1 final turn before the game comes to an end, including the player who triggered the end scenario. Once all players get this last turn, the game will end and the players will calculate their final scores. The exception to this is seen with Team Asia, Japan, Great Lakes, and World. With Team Asia, the minimum stock of colored train cars for any given team is combined 4 or less. In Japan, when a single player stock of colored train cars left at their turn and accompanied by 2 or less bullet trains left in the supply, each player, including that given player, will get 1 final turn. With the Great Lakes and World, when any one of the player's supply of pieces consists of 6 pieces or less at the end of their turn, regardless of their type, then each player will get 2 more turns, including the player who triggered the end game. Once all players get this last turn, the game will end and the players will calculate their final scores and will include any bullet train bonuses upon the standard bonuses that come with standard play. So with that said, that's what you need to know about the game mechanic of Ticket to Ride. With that taken care of, we can start talking about scoring points within the game. If you like this episode, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode, and happy gaming.